Among all the immigrants who were flooding India, an European group that called itself Aryans, Aryans means pure race, was more aggressive. They came by waves. The first wave arrived in India around 1500 BC. These were Indus seekers. They came into India to settle by the river Indus. Aryans was a Germanic tribe who were also nomads. They found Indus Valley convenient to raise their cattle. They were tall people, pink in color, with a sharp nose. You're talking about sharp nose in your book. Sharp nose, and had a will to take over and control the surroundings. They had weapons, as all nomads did. They found the Indus Valley people hospitable, polite, kind. Aryans called the Indus Valley people Dravida people. Dravida was a mispronounced word for Tamil. I see there's no connection there. When the English pronounced Tamil, it was close. But when Aryans pronounced it with their Sanskrit sound, Tamil became Dravida. Aryans did not bring any script with them. They brought a sound and a language without a script. They met Dravidian rishis in India. You see, when a community on the move in search of water for their cattle, it would not have any literature or philosophy. They had plenty of will to invade and survive. The only concern they would have is to how to fight the resistance, like the exodus of the people of Israel in the Old Testament. They would be ruthless and carry weapons as Aryans did. There was no use of horse in Indus Valley. That's another indication that Aryans came after Indus Valley, because Indus Valley there was no indication there was horses there. Aryans brought horses. Cow gave milk, and Dravidians called it holy. I mean, the cow is holy tradition did not come from Hare Krishna. It came from Dravidian culture. So Aryans took over the Tamil script. Excuse me, there's another one. There were plenty of cows there. Shiva Nandi is in fact is a cow. Cow gave milk, and it was plenty. So Aryans took over Tamil script and combined it with their European sound and called it Sanskrit. The Sanskrit evolved in India. Sanskrit evolved in India. They didn't bring it from outside or Europe. But the first Tamil literature that reflected the ethical life of the Indus Valley people did not appear until 200 BC. It is called the Tirukkural. But the rishis wrote Vedas in Sanskrit language. They wrote down in words what the Dravidians practiced in Indus Valley. There were mutual respect between Dravidians and Aryans until caste invented. Domination and subjugation continued for centuries. Historians call it Aryanization process. During the Aryanization process, caste evolved. Like any other history of domination and subjugation anywhere in the world, here also Aryans needed to divide and conquer India. Brahmins were the brain of the Aryan community. So they divided the Aryan groups into Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. And Brahmana were priests, so they were the highest caste because they were dealing with the divine matters. By the way, there is no scriptural basis for non-priestly Brahmins. If you're a doctor or an engineer and claim you're Brahmin, think again. Only priests were Brahmins. This is controversial, right? The local people resisted. The local people resisted Aryanization process, and the local people resisted the whole arrangement of caste. two major things Aryans did to convince the Dravidians that that was the way to go. One was that they invented a deep theological formula called karma samsara, to mean that it is the divine will that Brahmins should be the leader and caste hierarchy was the divine will. Thus, caste was invented to convince the Dravidians to stay in their camp as low castes and untouchables. If you rebel against this arrangement, you will be punished and you will be born inferior the next birth. So Dravidians consented to their karma. All the caste groups lower than Brahmins had to go through the cycle of birth and rebirth. So the theologians wrote Bhagavad Gita to emphasize one's duty to a karma samsara. The second thing they did was that they wrote Ramayana to demonstrate the superiority of the Aryans and the criminality of the Dravidians. Ravana, a black monkey, covets the beautiful white girl, Sita, and kidnaps her to Lanka. Her husband, Rama, the brave hero, destroys Ravana and rescues Sita. This is a familiar characteristic of domination and subjugation. By the way, this is the first time I hear that Sinhalese of Sri Lanka are Aryan group. I never heard that before. That's fine.
You didn't know that?
Yeah.
Ravana was a Brahmin. Gosh, how can you give me a lecture?
Okay. Let's.
What is the relevance to the topic?
Yeah. Let's dialogue later. The conflict in Sri Lanka is between Dravidian versus Dravidian, a gift given by the unscrupulous divide and rule policy of the British. Thus, Ramayana depicts the conflict between Aryans and Dravidians and Aryan victory over the Dravidians. The first resistance to Brahminic domination came from another Aryan group represented by Gautama Buddha. Buddha refused to accept the notion that only Brahmins defeated the cycle of birth and rebirth. He questioned their Brahmin priests' claim that only Brahmins could get enlightenment. He demonstrated under a tree called Bodhisattva that he received enlightenment. Buddha also rejected caste. Brahmins rejected Buddha as irrelevant, and Buddhism flourished everywhere else in Asia except India. The second resistance came in the form of rationalism. The rationalistic movement existed from 200 BC to 200 AD. The leaders of this movement were Tamil poets. Top among them was Thiruvalluvar. He lifted up wisdom, but I need to conclude this.
Sorry, we're running out of time. We can engage in this during question and
Please let
answer.
him talk.
Yeah.
We want to hear him.
Without
We want to
this,
hear him.
that makes sense.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The third wave of resistance, the second resistance, Thiruvalluvar, he lifted up wisdom over violence. He presented an alternate to organization. His poetry reflected Tamil ethos. Yadum Ure, Yavarum Kelir. Yadum Ure, we are all neighbors. We are all neighbors, and Yavarum Kelir, let us listen to one another. Tamil ethos. A third wave of resistance, there is historical evidence that St. Thomas came to India, but the evidence is murky about the notion that he started any church there. But he was a rationalist. The only disciple who questioned the existence of Jesus was, resurrection of Jesus was Thomas. The claim that St. Thomas started churches in Travancore is suffering from lack of hard evidence, but no one actually questions one's religious beliefs. But the scholars also believe that St. Thomas Church in Travancore was started by Syrian traders around 300 AD. Don't fight me on this, I won't fight you back because it's not important to me. I am pleased that there are Syrian churches in Kerala. I don't care who started. It is like I don't care whether Aryans came or came back. Doesn't make any difference to me. I am glad they should be here. They brought diversity to India. St. Thomas came to contact with the Tamil rationalism in South India and became anti-caste and anti-Brahmin. So he was killed in Mylapore, Chennai, by the Hindutva. This story makes sense to me because Hindutva did not care those days whether one was Hindu or Christian, but they would be very upset if karma is challenged. Rationalism challenged superstitions in Hinduism, but I reject the notion that Tiruvallur was a Christian. I'm with you on that. Tiruvallur was not a Christian, there's no evidence of that. To say that he was Christian is simply rubbish and even arrogant. If there's a Dravidian religion, it is Saivism, not Christianity. Saivism means love. Saivism means religion of love. Aryans corrupted it by introducing caste in it, but in Indus Valley, everybody was equal. And I'm coming to close it. Third resistance to Aryanism came from the Christian Protestant missionaries. A fourth wave of resistance can be the post-independence reservation policy of the Indian government. The purpose is to bring equality to the country, which in turn will tear caste hierarchy down. Brahmin revolt against Dravidian revival appeared in the same. Brahmins centered their resistance on opposing reservations to scheduled castes and tribes. That was the big elephant in the room. Rashtriya Seva Sangh and Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Shiva Sena, Hindu Munnani in Tamil Nadu, took up the cause of Brahmins. Together they are called Parivar. In the last many years, the Parivar has been engaged in violent activities against Christians. This is a Hindutva agenda. Hindutva's major function is to prevent progress among lower caste people and Dalits. Hindutva would object any equality among people because that would be detrimental to Brahmins' supremacy and hegemony. Dialogue is better than attacking churches and Dalit homes or trying to rewrite history. How annoying it is when you hear Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann says that the founding fathers abolished slavery. Michelle Bachmann's method does not work because it is a lie. So this book of Mr. Malhotra opens up a new chapter in Aryan-Dravidian relations. It exposes all our misunderstandings and forces us to encounter one another as honestly as possible. It exposes Christian hypocrisy and brings to light the faultiness of Brahminic supremacy. Dialogue is about a relationship. Relationship will not go well if we claim superior to each other. Who got there first, who is smarter? Come on, that's child's play. Let us grow up and respect one another. The question we need to ask is, now that we are all here, what do we do with one another, since all of us are facing same problems about livelihood, jobs, health care, etc. We don't have time or energy to question other people's identity or integrity. I threw some thoughts for your continuous thinking, and most of these thoughts I took from the latest writers of Indian history. I didn't make up anything. This is going on, and he is challenging us to rethink some of the things written about India. And as I have said before, he needs to think about some of the things he assumes happening in India. So this dialogue should continue, and don't get upset when you are challenged, and think about it and challenge each other, dialogue with one another, and we are all one people. It should be fine. Thank you so much.